Hello and welcome to part two with Rachael, Latham on our podcast. There was so much to cover, we had to break this podcast into two parts. So for anyone that hasn't listened to the first part, please go and do so. It's an amazing, Rachael's amazing story of being in and out of hospital at Alderhay Children's Hospital, and it's a really good listen. But in this podcast, we are now going to be covering, from your adolescent years, from 11 through to now.
Yeah.
And I guess what would be really interesting, I'm sure people want to hear about what it's like to go to the Paralympic Games and break world records. But I guess I would be really interested in finding out a little bit about, from that period in your life when you were in and out of hospital, what character did it create in you? What skills or attributes did it give you that you used in your sporting career and now in life? But I think a good place to start would be, we in the first podcast, we talked about coping strategies and protective factors, and one of yours was sport or physical activity or movement. So how did that come about? Is it just sport that you loved, or were you given lots of opportunities? And when did you know that swimming was the one that was going to be the thing that you loved the most?
Well, I was really lucky that my parents did then and still do now help me to kind of take any opportunity that comes along my way that's going to hopefully give me the best outcomes. So anything that came up, whether it be anything from piano through to gymnastics through to swimming, I gave it a go. Now, I know that not everybody is going to have those same opportunities. Not everybody's parents, they've got work and other siblings and there's lots going on. So hopefully you might be able to get this from school, if not from your parents. But I tried everything. So one of the things that the doctor had said to my parents was, we've twisted her arm from being here to being here. Let's try and make the most out of it. Don't let it get stiff. Like, let's use those muscles that we've kind of released. So piano was one of the first things that from when my tendons were all moved around, I was kind of thrown into. Gymnastics. I told the story in the first podcast about how I was picked on at school for not being able to do a handstand, but still, it was good that I gave it a go. I tried, and I think a lot of things in life, we might go, especially when we're that little bit younger or we're lacking in confidence because we've been through something massive like time in hospital, and we think, well, I'm not going to be very good at it, or maybe I'm not going to like it. But ultimately, unless you try it, how will you know? And that was something that kind of was put on me by my parents, that just give it a go, Rachael. So there were all sorts. I went to athletics, running clubs as well, but I ultimately always came back to swimming. And a lot of that was just because that's what I enjoyed the most. And I still stand by that now. If you can find something that you can spend your time doing that is going to make you smile and you are going to have fun doing it, do more of it. So even though from a young age and throughout primary school, I was trying out all these sorts of sports, by the time I got to 11, it was swimming that I had decided, this is something that I really enjoy and I want to do more of it. So ultimately, I am going to kind of drop some of my other activities to be able to do more of swimming, which ultimately, you don't need to do that. If you don't want to excel in something in particular, you can just keep doing a little bit of everything if a little bit of everything makes you happy. But for me, I had this feeling that I wanted to excel in swimming. I wanted to try and be the best. And a lot of that actually came from the fact that my sister was a good swimmer. And she was probably my first ever role model, because I looked at her and I thought, she can swim. I not only want to be a good swimmer like her, I want to be better than her. And it was that kind of drive, which ultimately I did become a better swimmer than her, which, always great. But that was kind of my drive. And there's a lot of talk about role models throughout life. And ultimately we think, well, it's going to be somebody all shiny on television or on Instagram that we want to try and be like or strive to achieve as much as they have. But it can just be the person you sat next to right now, or somebody in your own home or in the classroom. And for me, that was my sister. So that was a little bit of the reason why swimming, and not only because I enjoyed it, but because I had that kind of drive to want to have a bit of sibling rivalry and beat her. And um, actually being discharged from Alder Hey and starting my disability swimming journey, they overlapped very nicely. And actually, swimming was the only sport that I did where I was taken to a disability environment. So obviously piano, it was just, well, I'm just going to have a piano lessons, and everything else was just local facilities that I was just going to be a part of. Swimming started that way. I was going to club, the Wigan Swimming Club. I was also then doing stuff with school. That was all very mainstream, what a lot of people would call like able-bodied swimming. But because I'd realised that I swam better and faster if I didn't use my arm, my mum did take that initiative of going, well, this isn't really very fair for you, because you're starting to go get ready to do some sort of club swimming competitions, and you're competing against people who have a whole extra limb than you. So she reached out to what they basically, especially within like disability sports, split everything regionally. So I was Northwest. So my mum basically rang up the Disability Swimming Northwest coach and manager and just said, you know, my daughter she's a good swimmer, she's getting into it, she's already at a club, but I would like her to kind of not only have some specialized coaching for somebody who knows how to improve a one-arm swimmer, but also allow her to race against people that are on a level playing field, that I was racing against people who had the same ability as myself, and I wasn't at that disadvantage. Because I do remember that having that slow clapping at my first ever swimming race at a local club. And ultimately, I was going to lose because I'm racing against kids the same age as me, but they're swimming with two arms. And I wasn't that far behind. But those last, like, they'd all finished, like, hit the wall, and I've still got 5 meters to go, and it was backstroke, so I could see people, and they'd all started to stand and like, I'm like, no, not doing that anymore, because that's just not fair. And actually, even at that young age of 11, I knew that like that isn't fair. Like, what, there has to be something that allows me to be able to race against people who are also only swimming with one arm, or their kind of overall body ability is the same as mine. And that's basically where my swimming journey began, because I wanted to win medals, but I wanted to be able to do it in a fair way. So disability swimming was my big tick.
Yeah, amazing that you had that group and that expertise to access, because some people might not have had that in other areas. But so you're sort of 11, moving into sort of teenage years, and presume you're at a mainstream school, and I know how much training it takes, when you're a swimmer. So just talk us through how much training were you doing in that time, and how you were juggling other commitments like school and like relationships and friends. So what did that look like?
So there's basically a pathway system. So I've spoken about kind of stepping stones in our first podcast about how you can take your stepping stones through each operation at a time, but ultimately it's the same in sport. So you don't just wake up one day and go, hey, I'm going to be Olympic or Paralympic champion or play for England. You have a really far away stepping stone, and then you have small steps to get there along the way. And so for me, it started at club level and then going to regional competitions at a disability level. So I'm racing against other people within the northwest of England. And then it's kind of national level. So other people within Great Britain that also have disabilities. And then obviously you work your way up to international. And basically my training and the time commitments increased as my competition got and my responsibilities, and the more I wanted to do, it all just kind of has this gradual uphill incline, and it had to fit in around school, and also for me it had to fit in around some sort of social life. I was told there are 3 S's in life, and they're having this conversation: swimming, school, social. And if you want to achieve anything, you can only do 2 of them. And well, we're all here for swimming and nobody's leaving school, so you've got no social. And I'm like, oh, well, that sounds really boring. But then I realized that I could gain social within my sport.
Yeah.
And actually, and don't get me wrong, I still had great friends at school, and in other areas of my life, and I have a large family, so there was lots of other social aspects. But the people that I met in swimming, even on that very first day when I walk on poolside and realize, because as you said, I was at mainstream school, I wasn't with other people that had disabilities. The only people that I'd ever really come across that were different like me were in Alder Hey. But even then, it's not all about disabilities. You can be in there for any sort of reason. So actually walking onto a poolside and seeing visually that there are all these other people that also have different bodies like myself. I won't lie, found it scary at first. Also thought, I don't belong here because I'm not as disabled as all of these people. And then I was like, actually, no, this is where I belong. Like, this is so cool. Everybody I meet here can relate to me. Everybody I meet here gives me, like, can empathize with my situation. Nobody is giving you sympathy. We all are a little bit different. And all it did for me is remind me of that self-love and built my confidence and allowed me to feel less insecure. And I'm obviously not saying everybody who's been to All Day Hospital, go off and find disability competitions to build your confidence and love yourself more. Because ultimately not everybody even likes sport. But if you can find a community that gives you that, embrace it. And for me personally, that was disability swimming. And that was what I gained from that situation. Was the very first thing, was the people. And after that came the sport and the medals, and the journey of working its way up. And the training was hard. She said about fitting it all in. So I had my social in my swimming. My school was okay. You have to train 5 till 7 before school, because that's the only time the pool's open, before the public get in. And then you're going to go to school all day. And then you are going to go away and do your homework, have some food, and you're going to go back to the pool again in the evening. But I think you just get on with it. I mean, Adam, you did the training as well. You because it's something that was so important to me, and ultimately I enjoyed it. I wanted to do it. It gave me a smile on my face. So I wouldn't have gone through this process if it didn't. But it did make me happy. So I was willing to get up the early mornings and go to school all day and then train again in the evening. And ultimately, when you add up those hours, it was 24 hours a week of exercise plus education. And it was a lot. But, I had my stepping stones, and it was a gradual an incline of what I needed to do to try and ultimately become the best one-arm swimmer in the world. And I knew that that's what I had to do. And on those days where the alarm went off and I didn't want to get out of bed, I'd think, well, I bet that Chinese girl with one arm is training this morning, or I bet that American with one arm is training this morning, so better get my butt out of bed. And that you find what motivates you. And those were all those little things that kind of got me through that time when it was getting harder and I was trying to fit in school and social around swimming.
Yeah. We did a podcast that's on the app that these guys will be accessing around goal setting, and you've talked really, without watching that, you've talked really nicely around goals, having that dream goal that gets you out of bed in the morning. And I guess when you set up and you're 11 years old, you have a dream of being the fastest swimmer in the world or the Paralympic champion. But again, you don't necessarily have full control over that, but it's the thing that gets you out of bed. But the bit that you do have control of is the process, isn't it? The steps, the things that you have to do in order to get where you want to go. And people that might be listening to this might have no motivation at all to be an elite level sport, but they may have a goal. So their goal might be to become fit and healthy. Their goal might be to get back into some routine or normal, if there is a normal, we've talked about that, way of school life, or it might be to get that particular job. And I think the bit that I take from what you've just said is it's having that dream and ambition, but also being willing to do the process, is to do the hard things. And I guess as a disabled person, do you think the process was tougher for you, or was it the same as an able-bodied swimmer? But what are your thoughts on that?
It's a really good question, and ultimately, it's a question that gets asked a lot. Actually, what is it harder or easier to become a Paralympic athlete compared to an Olympic athlete? And you can split it right down the middle. I mean, you could go, well, there are less disabled people in the world, so the pool of people that you are competing against is smaller, so your chances of reaching the top are it's easier to reach the top because you've got less people to compete against. But ultimately, when you line up against those 10 people in a Paralympic final or in a World Championship final or whatever race it is, you can only race against the people that are there. Yeah. And ultimately, they are the best 10 one-arm swimmers in the world at that moment in time. They are the ones that you are competing against. And obviously I raced against a lot more than 10. In fact, there's actually a lot more disabled people than you even realize. I mean, it's crazy to think that how many people there are with disabilities in the world. And I think it's the perception a lot of the time that the media is given that if you have a disability, you should become a Paralympian. But ultimately, if I go to an event and I'm working with people with disabilities, there could be hundreds of people in that room. I'm the only Paralympian. And that's the whole thing of not everybody wants to grow up to be an Olympic athlete, just like not every disabled person wants to grow up to be a Paralympic athlete. And that is okay. You have your different challenges. I had my challenges that I had to find a coach that was going to be good enough to get me there. Whereas the chances are you, Adam, there are many able-bodied breaststroke coaches around. You weren't, so that wasn't really a barrier for you. So we will ultimately, able-bodied people and people with disabilities, you might have the same goal, but you will have different barriers to get you there. Different barriers that will get in your way when you are trying to achieve your goal. So I don't think there is an easy, simple answer to is it easier to become a Paralympian or an Olympian?
Yeah, maybe I phrased the question wrong, because I think what I was trying to get at was as a disabled athlete, is the process difficult to get there. So I think they're absolutely comparable. You're racing the best swimmers in the world. I'm racing the best swimmers in the world. I think there's that conversation shouldn't even happen. I think what I was trying to say, so what did you have to overcome as a disabled person that I didn't as an able-bodied person? So finding that right coach is one of them. What else was there?
A lot of it is mental barriers, or how you kind of process that thoughts on your own body, which is a lot different to obviously how an able-bodied person would have to go through that process. I mean, for me, I actually feel very fortunate that my disability was from birth. So I didn't acquire my disability later on in life. So everything I had known was I'm a one-arm swimmer, or I am a person who has limited use of my left arm, and I don't know any different to the process that it would take me, because I don't have any other process or means of ways to achieve. If you acquire disability later on in life, that can change. But ultimately, anybody with a disability, you are going to come across more, chances are, hurdles about confidence, believing in yourself, role models, being able to find somebody that you can look to and go, they're the same as me, I want to achieve what they're doing. Those sorts, there is a lot less, there's a lot of less people out there that you can look at and you can pull on and go, okay, that person is going to help me to shape me and make me stronger. But what you can use, and I think for me, a lot of it was actually my time in Alder Hey, I would think to myself, well, I'm the hard done by kid who is having to spend time in hospital, but actually those traits of resilience and of perseverance and determination, all those things that I learned to get through my operations, those traits are the things that actually are also helping me through the process. And I think that is the case with a lot of people with disabilities. It might not be for everybody that they spent time in hospital, but for pretty much every person with a disability, they will have had to adapt it. They will have had to have found them ways for themselves that the average able-bodied person never has to do. They need to be more resilient because the world is not made for them. You have to be more determined because you have to put more effort into doing things than a lot of other people have to do. So those are the things that will interfere with the process. But if you can go, well, that's fine, no big deal, I will rise above it. That's what makes you stronger. And that's what makes you go, I'm still going to achieve regardless of my disability. And I would often say, in fact, don't even think about having a disability. It's not what you can't do, it's what you can do. I can swim. I might swim differently, but I can swim. I can find the mental strength to achieve, even though the world is not set up for that. I mean, even lane ropes, think about it. Like swimming with one arm, I'm going to end up swimming into the lane rope for a long time before I learn to swim in a straight line. And that is like, that's a challenge and a barrier in itself. Okay, how do I adapt? How do I like stick to it until I get it right? And even if you don't have a disability, but you're older, hey, and you listen to this and you like everything you are going through right now, you won't realize until you step out of it, but you are becoming a stronger person because of what you are going through, and it will help you in life. And it's not to say that, you know, everyone should spend time in hostels to try and be the best at something, but ultimately that is the life that you have. Make the most out of it. Realize that you can gain from the positives that you have and use them in the classroom, use them in the playground, use them in the workplace. Like you can use the benefits that you have got from time in hospital that people who haven't been through it will never have. And so you don't think, well, this is really rubbish that I've had to go through this. Think, okay, yeah, it's not that great, but always a but I have got this and I have got that and I can use it in that way. And then hopefully you can actually see this as a positive later on down the line.
Yeah, that's amazing. I had goosebumps then when you were talking, Rach. That was really cool. Just finally, just to, because people listening will, you know, might not know and appreciate what is it like when you sort of achieve your goal and you know you make that Paralympic team or you become world champion, set a world record. Just talk us through your feelings at that point, and then I guess sort of like looking back on your journey. Yeah, what did it mean to you? What did it mean to you?
I mean, there is absolutely nothing better in the world than achieving something that you have put all the time and effort into, and also turning around to see the look on the faces of the people in your team that have helped you get there as well. Like for me, I had the same like feeling when I achieved something of, oh, well, my mums and dad are going to be really happy, or my coach who's been on poolside every morning for me, that was for him too. The same as when you don't achieve and you go, oh, they're going to be really disappointed in me. Oh, I should have been able to do better for them. And, you know, those, you have gone through so much with so many people that the overwhelming emotion of when you do achieve it is so unbelievably high. And then that's the reason why people go on to do more and more and more. It's the feeling you get when you do achieve. And whether that is the first time that you swim a personal best, or the first time that you complete something, or the first time that you get a gold medal around your neck, anything that is that feeling of, wow, that was all worth it. I want to do more and I want to do it again. And those were those things that pushed me through the hard times. And there were hard times. I absolutely did not get everything given to me on a plate. I missed out on the Paralympics at my first trials by 1 second. So that was the difference between me sitting at home and watching it on TV and the team and friends that I'd made over the years, watching them fly out, compete for their country, get their shiny kit, or me being there with them. That was a second, that was it. And that's a big mental challenge to come back from, because you think, well, maybe I'm just not good enough. Maybe I shouldn't be here. And then you think, no, this is what makes me happy. I have a great team around me that are going to help me get there. I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep going. I remember the feeling of when I did something that was great. I remember that feeling of when I did get selected for Great Britain. I'm going to go again. And then 2 years after me missing out at trials, I went to World Championships and I won a silver and bronze medal there. And I went to World Cups and became European champion. And everything was great. And you have those things. Think, so glad I didn't quit when I missed out by a second. And they are the feelings that get you through. And there still are ups and downs now. I injured the one arm that I swim with. I pulled the muscle down the back of my tricep and underneath my scapula, and they operated on it just before I went out to Beijing for my first Paralympic Games. And even though the experience was unbelievable, there were the whole crowd. I had 3 Chinese girls in my final of the 100 meters butterfly, so the place was packed. And you realize you have really achieved something special, and all those hours of early mornings and missing out on friends' birthday parties or whatever, they're worth it. But because of that injury, I didn't win the medal that everyone expected me to win. I just wasn't fit enough and strong enough at that moment in time to be the best in the world. And I got out of that pool, and I knew it was still all worth it, but I still thought, okay, I want to go again. I want to do more. And I came home from those games, but unfortunately, like that right arm, it got worse and worse and worse. And ultimately, I was told, if you continue training with one arm 24 hours a week, you're going to end up with limited use of your right arm, just like your left, in very different ways. But that's what's coming for you, and that isn't the case for everyone who trains with one arm. I just had some issues that it hadn't worked out my way. But then that's why I went into being a television reporter, because ultimately I still wanted to be part of the Paralympics. I still got that buzz from being part of this huge event, and I still gave me a big smile on my face. And I thought, okay, I can't be an athlete anymore. Just like I had to adapt all those years of how do I use my right arm more instead of my left, I had to adapt of how do I go to Paralympics instead of being an athlete, I go as in the media. And my whole life has been about adapting, but it's worth it if it gives you that smile on the face and the feeling you get when you achieve.
Yeah, amazing, Rachel. I mean, I think some people often think it's when they see people achieve their goal, it's a straight line to success, and you and I both know it's a complete roller coaster. And I think a lot of people, might have been in your position. They're at the hospital now, and they're thinking about what they want to achieve, and it's actually about not giving up through those difficult days, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rachel, thank you ever so much for your time. It's been wonderful to hear both the part 1 of this podcast and part 2, and I'm sure everyone listening to this will agree that it's been an amazing experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you.